Lance Hall here for Let's Discuss with Lance Hall. Happy to welcome Jim Peterik to the program tonight. Jim, how you doing?
Hey, Lance, I'm doing great. Any better would be illegal.
Here we go. Jim, of course, vocalist with the Ides of March, wrote Vehicle, went on to Survivor. You've written tunes for countless bands, countless hits out there. But what we want to talk about first is this album you've got coming out called Jim Peterik's World Stage. The album's named Winds of Change, April 26th on Frontiers Records. I have heard an advance copy of it. Fantastic stuff, Jim.
I'm really glad you like it. It's a really kind of a dream come true kind of album because as a songwriter, we were talking about this off the air, I write for the singer. That when Dave Bickler was lead singer of Survivor, I was writing for his voice, and things like Poor Man's Son and very gritty kind of rock songs. Yeah. And when he left the band and Jimmy Jamison took over, my writing took a more melodic pop kind of a thing, and I was writing or co-writing songs like Search Is Over, High on You, I Can't Hold Back, Burning Heart. So this album is kind of like the ultimate sample plate of what I love to do, and that is tailor songs to the artist, to the singer.
Yeah.
And God, what a palette! It's like a smorgasbord of great singers on this record, and just a real joy to make this record.
It is. It's fabulous. Now, the first question I got to ask you is, I realized after a bit, I thought the song you did with Kevin was a new song, but actually you guys had recorded that for one of the REO Greatest Hits album, right?
Absolutely. And here's a quick story behind that. I think the year was 2004, and Kevin Cronin and I got together to write songs for a new REO album. And one of them was called Just For You.
Yeah. And
we loved it. I remember sitting at his grand piano at his house, and we were just, very impressed with ourselves. And he came out to Chicago, and we did a very primitive demo, just, piano, like Fender Rhodes, a little bit of strings, and his voice, and maybe a little hand percussion, no big whoop.
Yeah.
And John Kolodner, who was the A&R person, we sent him the song. He said, I love this song, and this is a great song for REO. And he said, I'm going to pull out all the stops. So I want to do an album called The Ballads, and I want this to be like the signature track. So he hired Peter Asher, one of the greatest producers of all time, and Peter hired basically all the top guys in L.A., plus a string section and huge, big-ass production.
Yeah.
And it was a wonderful thing. And I loved it. And Kevin Cronin called me about 2 weeks after it was released and said, Jimmy, you're not going to believe this. I like the demo better. And I said, why? He said, because it's so raw.
Yes.
It's my voice, and it's not, my voice isn't perfect, but it gets the emotion across. You know what I'm saying? I said, yeah, I get that. But and I always remembered that conversation. So I was putting together songs for this record. I knew that Kevin was going to be too busy to, touring and everything, to get together with me and write a new song. So I said, you remember that demo? He said, Jimmy, put it on the record. So, I remixed it, remastered it, and that's the virginal demo of Just For You.
Wow. When I realized, I never bought the Greatest Hits albums because I always had all the albums, so I missed out on some of these special tracks. And when I realized it had been put out, I went back and, of course, I listened to the REO, the finished version, much more, like you say, orchestral and stuff like that. It was great. Then I went back and listened to this version. I agree with Kevin 100%. You get the rawness, you get the emotion.
Yeah.
And for me, as a listener, the killer part for me was at the end where it's kind of fading down and he's going out on the piano and he goes, Just For You, baby.
Oh, my God. I get a goosebump every time.
Yeah. And when that was missing off the album version, I was like, wait a minute, where's that line,
Where's that line? Well, yeah, when you get that kind of production, sometimes it's a mixed bag. It's beautiful, but, man, he was right.
Yeah, I agree. Now, are the rest of the songs new, or did any of these go back in time?
Well, with the exception of that one and the late Jimmy Jamison track, which I'll give you a brief story on, those are all brand new, cut from whole cloth, most of them co-written with the co-singers.
Okay.
So, I mean, what a joyous experience to round these guys up. And when Serafino called me and said, it's been 20 years since your last World Stage album, I said, yeah, that's because it's such a pain in the ass to bring it all together.
Yeah.
All these people from all over the country or world even.
Yeah.
And he says, no, it's time for another one. So I rose to the occasion. I started making calls, and every last person said yes.
Nice.
And almost every person to the man actually came into Chicago, or I went to them to write the song, head to head in their studio or bedroom or whatever, which is part of the reason it's so cohesive of a record,
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of Love You All Over the World with Jimmy Jamison, here's a brief story behind that. It was about 2008, and Jimmy called me one day and said, I want to do a country record. Can you help me? And I go, sure. I mean, I'm a writer, man. Anything that's good music, I'll write in any direction you ask me, except hip hop and rap.
Right.
I'm not good. I don't like it well enough to write it.
Sure.
So, but I always knew Jimmy had some country roots. There was that kind of a cry in his voice that was so distinctive, almost like a little yodel, that I just treasured that part of him. So I wrote about 8 songs for this unnamed and unlabeled product, and he came in Chicago, and there's one song that really stood out to me. It's called Love You All Over the World. So when I was putting this album together, that song, I just kept going back to it. And I listened to it, and there was dobros on it and mandolin, and it was wonderful, but it wouldn't have fit in this record, and it wouldn't really have fit into Jimmy Jamison's legacy.
Yeah.
So I called his family, because he had, of course, passed away, and they said, man, we love that song. You have our blessings to do it, to redo it, whatever you want to do, we trust you. So I had my engineer, Larry Millis, put up the 24-track from 2008, and I put up the fader on Jimmy Jamison's voice, and there was his voice and all the pristine wonder of that sound, and I just got goosebumps, man. There he was in the room. I called all the musicians over, and I played it for him, and they're all like, we were like tearing up, because it was like he was in the room with us.
Yeah.
And we crafted a whole new track around his vocal performance.
Nice.
And, I got to say, it worked. At least in my opinion, it really worked. And I think we did his memory hopefully a good thing.
Absolutely. I got to ask you, a couple years ago through YouTube, I discovered a Christmas tune he had done called Keep It Evergreen.
Yeah, I had no part in that, but I recently heard it too, and I don't know the history of that song.
Yeah. Fabulous tune. I just wondered if you guys...
It was really good, yeah. I people said, did you write that? I said, I wish I had.
Yeah.
But no.
Cool. Let's go through. I picked out a few tracks. I could have asked you. I could ask you questions about every song. You got 12 songs, 12 voices on here. Without a Bullet Being Fired, Mike Reno, classic Loverboy sound. So good to hear that voice again. Boy,
I'm glad you. Well, like I said, they're all my children, and I love them all. But that one really stands out because we tried to consciously capture Loverboy in their prime.
Yeah.
Almost everyone to a man is not afraid of their past. They love to move forward, but it's not like they're saying, "Oh, that shit." No, they love 1981, 82, and I said, "Okay, we're going to put ourselves in a mindset, Reno. You're maybe about 75 pounds lighter. You had your red pants on, red leathers. You had your headband on. The chicks in the front 3 rows are hotter than shit.
Yeah.
And you're singing working for the weekend, and everyone's going nuts." He says, "Okay, got it, Jim." I said, "Okay, let's write this song." And I brought the title to him. I had this title. A lot of times I'll write from title. To me, a great title, the song almost writes itself, because Without a Bullet Being Fired. Okay, let's talk about that.
Right.
We're talking about it. What happened? What happened? You took my heart, man. Without a bullet being fired, man. I was a dead man after I saw you. And with that nugget of concept, we just went to town. And the next day, I called the A Players, the World Stage Band, and we cut the hell out of it.
Great tune.
Thank you. The thing that took the longest was finding the right gunshot sound. Yeah, and we were trying it on synthesizer and all this stuff. Nothing sounded right. Finally, my son Colin found a sound effects library with the ultimate gunshot. We use that.
There you go. Proof of Heaven, Dennis DeYoung. What a personality that guy is. I mean, I took my daughter to see him. He played a small theater up here in Vermont a couple springs ago, and she was 15 at the time, and I said, honey, I can't get my kids into too much classic rock, but she liked Come Sail Away and Babe and a few others. I said, honey, I'm taking you to see this guy. I said, this is going to be a great show. And I mean, just fabulous. I watched the video you guys cut for it. This song must have been an absolute hoot to do with him.
Oh, man. I'm telling you, it's one of the high points for me of this whole album. And it was a late comer. Because I'm working with Dennis on a solo album, and we're almost done with it. But he gets very focused. And I said, would you do a song for World Stage? He said, Jim, I would love to. No offense, but I'm so focused on my solo album. I said, yeah, okay, I get it. So anyway, I said, but take a listen to the rest of the album. So I sent him a copy of the album, this digital file, you know.
Yeah.
He lives literally a block and a half from me, by the way. And when we write together, I walk over there. It's hilarious. But he loved the album. And suddenly he's going like, I want a song on this record. You know. And then that was a real compliment because he really felt he was in good company.
Yeah.
And we wrote Proof of Heaven. And the problem was the record was due. And I called Serafino. I said, you know, I know the deadline is like in 5 days. Dennis wants to do a track. Can you extend the deadline? He goes, for Dennis DeYoung, take all the time you need. You know, a true capitalist and a true Dennis fan, you know, because he knew this was going to be a standout track. And, you know, like I said, preaching to the choir, you know, for a while, you know, when Dennis was making solo albums, he wanted to sound different than Styx and distance himself from the classic Styx sound. But with this record and with Proof of Heaven, he really wants to basically recapture, you know, his part in making the Styx sound what it really became.
Yeah.
And my wife didn't know about this song, and I was playing it in the kitchen, and she goes, "Oh, is that new Styx?" And I go, "Kind of." Yeah. But I mean, you know, there's some voices, you know, that you just know them immediately. He'll sing 3 words and you know it's Dennis DeYoung.
Right. He's just got that total distinctive voice. So the next track, and I love to be able to talk to the artist who did it to see if I'm hearing this right with my ear. So Home Fires, you did it with Toby Hitchcock, who of course you worked with in Pride Alliance. Right. What stood out to me on this track is throughout the verse, there's almost like a melancholiness to the verse. But when you get to the chorus, it builds into this total power vocal. And then it drops back to kind of the melancholiness. And I loved the guitar solo out. I thought that was brilliant. But am I hearing the voices right throughout the verse and the choruses?
Oh, man, you nailed it. I mean, to me, it's that dichotomy, that bittersweetness that makes a song a lot of times. With this one, and I'm kind of like known for songs about missing home. I mean, from Across the Miles on Too Hot to Sleep, and so many songs. Well, that song stands above. That was one of my favorite songs I've ever written or co-written. But there is that bittersweetness. You got to do what you do. We're musicians. You got to be on the road. You got to do that. Yeah. But man, you're missing your home, and that theme resonates with me because I spend most of the 70s and 80s on the road, either with the Ides of March and then Survivor.
Yeah.
So I know that ache of missing someone, and yet when it hits that chorus, you know, you're suddenly in a good mood because you know right around the corner you're coming home.
Right.
And so you got it.
Cool. Very cool. Hand I Was Dealt with Danny Vaughn. Great message. So much positive in that tune, which I think it's sort of coming back around now. And I think that's what a lot of the kids missed. And I'm not slagging on the music through the 90s and early 2000s, but like when grunge came along, like I said, I'm not dissing the music. I loved a lot of that stuff, but the message just wasn't there, you know?
Right.
Whereas this is just a great tune. Where did you guys come up with this one?
Well, great. I'm glad you like it and glad you get it. First of all, I was a big Ty Kettle fan, and it was one of the few bands in the 90s that I really, really liked.
Yeah.
Because they had songs, and Danny sings his ass off.
Mm-hmm.
And I never met him or the band. I was playing the Frontiers Fest in Milan 3 years ago, and I was with Pride of Lions, and right after Pride of Lions, Danny Vaughn went on stage as a solo with a backup band and just killed me. He was so good. And I said, boy, this guy is a major force. I mean, as a singer, as a front man, you know, he's great. So we had breakfast the next day, and that's when we started scheming. And you know, he loves my writing, as it turns out. And so it was a mutual admiration society, you know. And when I got home, I was in the midst of starting the World Stage album, and I said, "How would you like to write by Skype or FaceTime?" He said, "Let's do it."
Yeah.
And he was up in Alaska where he lives, you know. I don't know why he lives up there, but anyway, it was one of those songs that developed across the miles, no pun intended.
Yeah.
And it sounds like we were in the same room because we were so on the same page. But I had the title, you know, The Hand I Was Dealt, and he immediately got the premise of that song. It's not the hand you were dealt, man. It's what you do with that hand that makes a loser or a winner. And he loved that idea. So between the two of us, I would send him, you know, a chorus. He'd send me a verse. We'd kibitz. And finally, I cut a track, send him the track. He did the vocals in, I guess, in Alaska. Send it back, and they were terrific. And I mixed it here.
Nice. Last one I got to ask you about, just because this one sounded like you guys are having so much fun recording it, was Avalanche with the Nelson Twins. That just sounds like a fun song.
Yeah, well, you hit the nail on the head. They're great guys, first of all. We have a blast when we get together. They've been on a lot of world stage shows with me in the last 5 years, and always, you know, bring down the house with their hits from the 80s, 90s actually, early 90s.
Yeah.
But also then they go back in time and do some of the, you know, the classics like Garden Party, you know, by Ricky Nelson. And that people just love it. Anyway, so we get together. It's more of a party than anything else. But then we get serious, and you know, they really wanted a song for this album. And you know, Gunnar and Matthew, I said, "What do you got?" And they started playing this guitar riff. It was almost like, you know, a Ronnie Wood or a Keith Richards, like. And I said, I love that. You got any words? Nope, got no words. So I looked at my little notebook, and I saw one word, avalanche. I said, holy shit, what do you think of this? You got me falling like an avalanche, over and over, baby, taking a chance on love. And they go, shit, yeah. And we poured another shot of tequila, and we finished the fucking song.
Good.
And we cut it the next day. It was just a blast. And Matthew was playing bass on that, and Gunnar is playing almost all the guitars. I played some guitars too.
Yeah.
And then I hired, you know, Eddie Breckenfeld on drums. So it's really the Nelson Peterik band.
Nice. Yeah. Just a total fun tune. Like I said, I could ask you about every tune on this album, but you sort of led me into my next bit of questioning with how you come about with songs and you know, how you work off a title and stuff. I mean, I got to ask, and I've always been jealous of people who can write like this. Are you like a good writer? Were you like a journal keeper? You know, were you good in like English in school? Were you one of these guys that just wrote a lot, or was it just been like songs that you were always, or poetry or whatever?
No, I was very much a journal. I never kept a diary. It's not that, but I was great at composition work. You know, in fifth grade, I had this great inspirational teacher that would give us the first sentence, just a sentence, and we had to write a composition from that first sentence.
Yeah.
And that just, my mind just blew right open, man. And from then on, I knew that give me a good seed and I can do the rest.
Yeah.
You know, and then I'm doodling titles in every margin of every, school book I ever had. I wrote my first song to play for the class in 7th grade called Hully Gully Bay.
Wow.
And I learned it on my first electric guitar, played it for the class. Suddenly, I was a popular guy.
Yeah.
And, it's very reinforcing when you start getting feedback that what you're doing is really valid, So I just never stopped.
Wow. That's awesome. So it's almost like in that scene from that movie Light of Day where Michael J. Fox is sitting there with a little kid and they turn the TV on and they hear that one line and they build a song off it. Remember that scene?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like that a lot. And another movie that looked like my life was That Thing You Do with Tom Hanks, because when I was with the Ides of March, we had a hit record in 1966 called You Wouldn't Listen on the Parrot label. And it went to number 42 nationwide. It went to number 7 in Chicago. And the first time we heard that on the big WLS radio, we're opening the car windows and saying, "That's us, baby,"
Yeah.
And we're going 90 miles an hour down Cermak Road. I could so relate to that.
Yeah.
And I still remember the first time I heard Vehicle going down the highway. Dick Biondi just knew from the Ides of March, Vehicle, and I still draw inspiration from those moments. Same thing with Eye of the Tiger. The first time I heard that on the radio, and radio is so important to me. It still is.
Yeah, I hear you. You had a hand in writing a book, Songwriting for Dummies. Can anybody be a songwriter?
Well, you know what? When you read the book, you realize, in a way, yes. But the caveat is you got to find the right collaborator. And Bernie Taupin would not have been a hit writer if you didn't find Elton John. Elton John is not a lyricist. Bernie Taupin is. Ba ba boom.
Right.
And to me, it's really about finding that counterpoint. I'm not saying everybody can write a song, but I'm saying if you have a lyrical talent, doesn't mean you have to be a musician. And if you're a musician, it doesn't mean you have to be a brilliant lyricist. But you got to find your counterpoint. And I love collaboration. Collaboration is, if I hadn't gotten together with Don Barnes and Jeff Carlisi, we wouldn't have a song called "Hold On Loosely." Because it's just a real brief story. We're sitting around the kitchen table, total strangers, and eating nachos that my wife made, and all of a sudden Don says, "Well, I got a title." I said, "Well, what is it?" He goes, "Hold On Loosely." And I go, "Holy shit, but don't let go."
Yeah.
And Jeff Carlisi goes, "Well, I got this lick. Let's hear it. Bad. Holy shit, let me put this together, baby." And by the next day, we had "Hold On Loosely" and became, a top 5 record.
Yeah.
So, collaboration, it's not always the easiest thing, but, man, the results are amazing.
Yeah. Is there anybody that you haven't worked with that you'd like to?
I always say Mick Jagger. Brilliant lyricist. He's a brilliant musician, singer, everything. But I always wondered what we could do together. It's just, he's one of my heroes.
Yeah.
And very modest. If you listen to the lyrics of like Brown Sugar or any of his songs, Tumbling Dice, there's Fever in the Funk House now. The guy was fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
And he never brags about it. He never tells the stories behind the songs. No, that's not him.
Yeah.
But he's a genius.
Yeah, absolutely. I got to ask you, back in the day with like Ides of March, and then like in the mid-'70s with Jim Peterik Band, you toured with some acts that were just Zeppelin, Janis Joplin, Heart, Boston. These bands are just blowing up, and getting huge. What was it like being out with them? That must have been a trip.
Well, yeah. Talk about your head exploding at age 19.
Yeah.
The first time around, of course, it was Vehicle. Went to number 1 in the spring of 70. So the summer was intense, and that was a great year for the Outdoor Pop Festival. And we must have done them all. We would be on the bill with, on one stage in one day, you would be with Poco, the Grateful Dead, Janis Joplin, Allman Brothers, all in one day.
Yeah.
Apricot Brandy, what was that band? Rhinoceros.
Oh, yeah.
Brownsville Station. Sharing dressing rooms with Jerry Garcia. That's a mixed blessing for sure.
Yeah.
But, just incredible. I mean, the feeling of opening up for Led Zeppelin in Winnipeg. We played many dates, but the Winnipeg thing really stood out to me because, not to sound boastful, but we blew them away.
Yeah.
We had a great night. They had a fuck night. They had a bad attitude because the PA sucked and nothing was right. And of course, the Ides of March, we didn't care. We were used to playing with the shittiest PAs in the world.
And just happy to be there.
We're just happy to be there. So we got a standing ovation after every number. The headlines the next day, Ides of March 2, the show from Led Zeppelin.
Nice.
It's one of those things, if I have a down day, I think of those moments where we were just on fire.
Yeah. I got to ask you one question. I went back as I was researching for this interview. I was trying to get a good overview of everything. I went back and I rewatched the video for Eye of the Tiger. Where did you guys shoot that? I'm looking at one point when you're walking up the street, you see this billboard that says like live nude girls.
Right.
Where'd you guys shoot that?
That was the slums of San Francisco.
Really?
Yeah. The director, his name was Bill Deere, a really good video guy. He wanted to find the sleaziest place in the world for us to walk down the street. And so we're going past live nude girls, and I'm cracking up. The whole band's cracking up. And the one take you saw, we finally stopped laughing long enough to do one take marching down that street.
Yeah.
And then he found a location, another sleazy kind of factory for us to be. That place was kind of cool because it had a funky vibe. And, we're working out ostensibly Eye of the Tiger. And then we ended up at the sound stage and with rubber all around, and they're throwing water on us. And it was, that video has had something like 1.5 billion views.
Yeah.
If I knew that, I would have lost a few pounds and not worn that fucking white sweatshirt. Yeah. And it haunts me to this day.
Oh, funny, too funny. Talking with Jim Peterik here, and let's discuss with Lance Hall. New album, Jim Peterik World Stage. The title is called Winds of Change. It's coming out April 26th on Frontiers. You got 12 tunes, 12 vocalists. I love the way you crafted, like you said, you crafted songs for every sound of the band that these guys are in. Just a fantastic job, Jim. Fantastic album.
Well, thank you. And I mean, we didn't even mention the wonderful Kevin Chalfant.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just want more. This is a guy, this is a real brief story. He auditioned for Survivor the day before Jimmy Jameson auditioned. And we were almost going to say, Kevin, you're in. A great singer.
Yeah.
And the next day, Jimmy came and fucking blew the doors off.
Yeah.
And he just had the right look, the right chemistry. But Kevin and I have been always dear friends, and he's been involved in many of the shows that I've done through the years. But yeah, it's been a great ride. I'll tell you that.
Definitely.
And I also, if I can leapfrog on a new project, a new old project.
Absolutely.
The Ides of March are releasing an album called Play On. 14 brand new songs. It's going to be out in August. The original 4 members together for 55 years since 1964. The horns, the harmonies, the vehicle sound,
nice.
And I get to sing lead on all these songs, and we have a few guest vocalists. We have Mark Farner from Grand Funk came in and wrote and co-sang a song with me.
Killer.
And Bo Bice from American Idol, who sang Vehicle to the top of the charts back in '05.
Yep.
Joe Bonamassa did a guest spot with us. Kathy Richardson from Jefferson Starship.
Wow.
And it's a major, I hate to say a major album, but to us it's a major album.
Yeah.
And I can't wait for you to hear that when the time is right as well.
Very cool. I'll tell you, one of the other covers I found of Vehicle, again on YouTube, Lynn Turner did a version of it that I thought was smoking.
Oh, he kills it. Yeah, that was on Undercover.
Yeah.
I didn't even know him at the time. He covered it without even knowing me. And that was at least 2 years before I started writing with him for Deep Purple and all this stuff, and he's just an amazing vocalist, and great guy as well.
Yeah. Jim, I always like to wind up my interviews with some funky, funny questions. I'm hoping these are questions you've never even been asked before. I know this is the last interview of the day, and I promised you something a little different. Now we're up to that part. Sound good?
Not a problem.
If you could blink and appear anywhere in the world, where would you like to go?
Oh God, I would have to say Rome.
All right.
I love Italy. I feel at home there. I love the ruins, the Parthenon. I love the food. It's a very romantic city. So that's my answer.
All right. Favorite old school wrestler?
Oh God. Geez, you know what? I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know. Lawler? I don't know.
Jerry Lawler? That's a great answer. Lawler's a great
probably.
answer. Yeah,
probably.
Great answer.
You know.
All right, cool.
But you're right. I never got that one. I never got that question.
Given your choice of household chores, would you choose dishes or laundry?
Oh, dishes for sure.
Dishes for sure?
Yeah, I hate laundry.
All right. Late at night and you're hungry, what do you grab for a midnight snack?
I usually go with cereal.
Okay.
A lot of cereal, a lot of cold milk, and bowl after bowl of cereal.
Excellent. Would you rather go back in time and meet your ancestors or forward in time and meet your great-great-great-grandchildren?
Holy crap. What a great question. Man, you know what? I'd rather meet my great-grandchildren coming up, man. I want to see what they're like, and I want to see if they're still listening to Eye of the Tiger.
I bet you they will be. I bet you they will be.
That's a great question, man.
All right, last one, and this is the one we have the most fun with. And I've been asking this question long before all these biopics, the Queen movie and the Motley Crue movie came out. I go back a few years with this one.
Yeah.
If they were making a movie of your life, what actor would you have play you in the movie? And it's your movie, your life, you can pick anybody.
Oh, my God. I really got to think of that. Wow. Well, I mean, there would be no resemblance whatsoever to this person, but I think Tom Cruise could really rip up Vehicle.
I bet he could, too. I bet he'd do a hell of a job on it. So. All right, been chatting with Jim Peterik here. Let's discuss the Lancel once again. Jim Peterik World Stage, the album Winds of Change, out April 26th on Frontiers. And look for that Ides of March. That's coming out later in the summer.
Like August, huh?
August? Okay, we'll look for that one as well. And it's been a hoot talking to you tonight, Jim. Like I said, you go back to my very first rock concert. I probably wouldn't be sitting here talking to you now if I hadn't gone to that show. Survivor, life-altering.
Well, I'm blown away at your deep knowledge of rock and roll and in my career. Very, very flattering. And it's a pleasure talking to you.
All right. Thank you so much. Take care.
All right. Thanks, Lance.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.